in studying Pride and Prejudice. Wow. Jane Austen has always been a writer who's been quite difficult for me to read personally. I know that this is not the case for everybody. I think for me, it's more so the fact that it's written with a bit of old English, right? So in terms of some of the vocabulary, that's what made it a bit more of a hurdle to read. But I can promise you that if you put in the effort to look up those words that are a little bit different from how we would describe things today. For example, one that I remember in year 11 I had to learn was the word demeanor, and how that was really a replacement for the word behavior, which is what we use now. Then I think that you'll come a long way in understanding Jane Austen's text really well. So let's dive into Pride and Prejudice. Background. Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice follows protagonist Elizabeth Bennet as she navigates the social realm of 1813 England. Elizabeth belongs to a large middle-class family and has 4 sisters in total. Her mother, Mrs. Bennet, embodies the traditional beliefs of the time, hoping to see her daughters marry wealthy, young bachelors. Therefore, when Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy, 2 very rich and successful young men, move nearby, Mrs. Bennet is quick to express her desire for her daughters to marry them. Jane, a sister of Elizabeth who is notable for her beauty, immediately develops a close bond with Mr. Bingley. As the relationship between Mr. Bingley and Jane begin to flourish, Mrs. Bennet places greater pressure on Elizabeth to follow suit. Thus, when Elizabeth rejects a marriage proposal from her greedy cousin Mr. Collins, Mrs. Bennet is enraged. Elizabeth's dislike of Mr. Darcy is concurrently deepened as she hears rumours that Mr. Darcy cheated people out of their fortune, furthering her prejudice against who she perceives as an arrogant man. Mr. Darcy later unexpectedly proposes to Elizabeth as he admires her, and to his surprise, he's rejected as Elizabeth recognises that his pride dictated his proposal, as if he was doing her a favour by asking for her hand in marriage. Later on, Mr. Darcy realises his mistakes and attempts to correct his attitude, presenting himself with benevolence and generosity. This takes Elizabeth by surprise and forces her to question her previous assumptions about him. The novel concludes with Mr. Darcy's second marriage proposal to Elizabeth, this time with integrity and affection, and Elizabeth agrees. As the title would suggest, Mr. Darcy learns to overcome his pride, and Elizabeth dismisses her previous prejudices. Themes. Pride and Prejudice has a whole lot of themes. Today, we'll dive into the themes of pride, class, and wealth. If you're interested in reading more about the other themes such as prejudice, marriage, and family, I'd recommend following the link in the card and description box below to our blog post for more information. The title of the novel makes it quite clear that pride is an important theme. Austen presents pride as a character flaw that was very prevalent during the Victorian era. She believed that people lacked authenticity and placed themselves at the highest level of importance. We can see Austen's depiction of this in Mr. Darcy, who consistently frowns upon those of a lower class. Elizabeth is not tolerant of this attitude, and therefore, in order to gain her respect and love, Mr. Darcy must swallow his pride. Thus, Austen demonstrates the importance of not allowing pride to envelop one's personality. Alongside pride, Austen emphasizes the impact that class and wealth have on society. In fact, she suggests that flaws like pride stem from divisions created by class and wealth. In turn, this means that characters like Mr. Darcy are depicted as overly proud and arrogant, partly because of their status in society. Others like Mr. Collins are greedy, wanting only to attain the most wealth possible without any consideration for others. Even Mrs. Bennet prioritizes wealth as a necessary quality of eligible bachelors for her daughters. Again, through the text, Austen conveys the shallow nature of a society that is depicted by the doctrines of capitalism, where the accrual of money is viewed as a core priority. If you'd like to learn more on how to elevate your essay onto that next level with more conceptual ideas, then I recommend you check out my video on different interpretations in VCE. Essay prompt breakdown. Now, if you know my work, you'll know the 5 types of essay prompts, a straightforward strategy that helps you quickly identify the type of essay prompt in front of you and understand exactly what you need to include in your essay in order to get that A+ score. As a quick snapshot, I'll show you what you should think about when you're faced with a character-based prompt. What do the various relationships between Austen's characters tell us about love, marriage, and society? Planning is essential to any coherent, well-reasoned, and logical essay. Seriously, it's really important. It's so important that I've created the Think and Execute strategy that emphasizes the importance of thinking in the planning phase, so we've got a good amount of analysis and discussion when it comes to executing our response. You can learn more about that over at my blog post or in my How to Write a Killer Text Response ebook. Arguments. While this question is character-based, your arguments and more importantly, your essay should always focus on what the author's message is to his or her audience. An example of what I mean can be seen in these 2 contention sentences. Darcy and Elizabeth's relationship shows that love triumphs all, even the expectations of society. Through the relationship between Darcy and Elizabeth, Austen suggests that love and happiness should guide the intention of marriage, rather than the pursuit of money. Both of these sentences argue that love is more important than anything else, but the second sentence is driven more by Austen's thoughts and your discussion and analysis of Darcy and Elizabeth's relationship, while the first sentence is purely focused on the characters and the plot rather than what their relationship means. In reality, the best students will take heed on the emphasis of the word society in the prompt, and acknowledge that since this is character-based, the prompt is asking us to unpack what Austen is trying to say about these concepts and how she does this through the characteristics and actions of specific characters. We need to really think about what Austen is saying about love, marriage, and society, then combine this brainstorming of themes with the characters in the text. It's a bit of a balancing act. Contention 1. Argument 1. Through Charlotte, Austen demonstrates how practicality, rather than love, can be the ultimate influencer in 19th century England marriages, because the decision would dictate one's new social status. Notice how we're thinking a bit outside the box here. The concepts of love, marriage, and society are clearly essential to our discussion, but for this body paragraph, we're looking to analyze where practicality seems to trump love in marriages because of society. Hold on, Lisa! Say that again? Well, this argument is pretty much removing love from the picture and arguing that the practical changes in social status resulting from a marriage, good or bad, would often affect the decision-making of individuals, to the point where they choose class over love. Remember, it's a character-based prompt, so we're using Charlotte as a key example here. Argument 2. Austen utilizes the actions of Mrs. Bennet and Miss Bingley to reveal how marriages during this era impacted upon an entire family's social status, and thus would incite the involvement of all family members. Our first body paragraph briefly touches on how social status is intricately linked with marriages. In the second body paragraph, we want to explore this further. In Pride and Prejudice, the actions of Mrs. Bennet and Miss Bingley reveal explicitly this connection with social status and how this would affect the social status of the entire family. Argument 3. However, through the relationship between Darcy and Elizabeth, Austen suggests that love and happiness should guide the intention of marriage rather than pursuit of money. This last paragraph is actually a bit of a rebuttal. While the first 2 paragraphs focus on the reality of 19th century England, which Austen portrays and criticizes, this last paragraph focuses more intently on the message of our author. Rather than the formalities and superficiality or worrying about social class, Austen urges us to take heed of the importance of love and happiness when it comes to choosing our life partners. Come on, Charlotte, get with the program! If you'd like to learn about Pride and Prejudice in more detail, then I'd recommend you head over to our blog post, which is an extended version covering themes, characters, different types of essay prompts, and more. I'd like to thank Angelina Zhu for writing up the script. She's filmed a video with me in the past on this channel, so I'll link that up in the cards up above and in the description box for you below if you wanted to find out more about her experiences during VCE. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye!